In the latest chapter of Donald Trump's promised retribution, he has signed an executive order against a law firm called Perkins Coie. The executive order is a sweeping directive. It bans the federal government from hiring this one firm or from using contractors who work with this one firm, except in very limited circumstances. The executive order also bars this firm, Perkins Coie, employees from entering any federal building and suspends all of their security clearances. It is a direct hit against one of Trump's perceived political enemies in the private sector. The Washington law firm has, among many clients, represented Hillary Clinton and the DNC during the 2016 presidential race. Perkins Coie also handled the 65 lawsuits that the Trump campaign filed in their efforts to overturn his defeat in 2020 when he ran against Joe Biden. That firm won all but one of those cases, in excess of 60 cases against Team Trump, thanks in large part to a friend of this program, Mark Elias, who once worked at the firm. See? The dots are all connected. A spokesperson for Perkins Coie calls the executive order, quote, patently unlawful. They intend to challenge it. The Washington Post describes Trump's retaliation like this, quote, the move could have a chilling effect on law firms' willingness to take on clients and cases that run counter to the Trump administration, challenging a fundamental tenet of the rule of law in the United States that everyone should have access to legal representation. Joining our coverage, former RNC chairman, now MSNBC host and political analyst Michael Steele. Christy still with us. Michael Steele, have you seen the law firms that are currently in good standing step into the fray and publicly defend this law firm today?
No, and you won't, because they're part of the grift machine. Why would they? Why would they turn off that spigot? I think every law firm in this town and around the country should stand together and say, go ahead, try it. Try it. I mean, are you serious? I mean, the American people, you're looking at this and you think this is normal and okay to single out a law firm that happened to represent a political opponent of Donald Trump and the lawyers who were involved in cases and litigations against him? How dumb is that? And think about it in terms of if any other business in this country operated that way, where they would tell you, I'm sorry, we're not going to serve you the goods you ordered because you ordered from a competitor, or you also contribute money to an organization we don't like. I mean, this is just not normal. This is the musings and actions of a petty, afraid little man who's sitting behind a very big desk and wielding a lot of power. But at the end of the day, he's a scared little boy who feels that this is the only way he can get payback, is to go after the law firms who just did what they're supposed to do, what they were hired to do. And so I'm hoping the legal community, as an active member of the legal community, I'm hoping that we all stand together and go ahead, make our day. You know, you want to tie this up in litigation. Let's get this in front of the Supreme Court and let's hear what those lawyers have to say, because this is crazy. Well,
and I mean, Michael, still, I guess the point is, I mean, the enemies lists that have been public, right? The one that Kash Patel publicized, the people who've been attacked, they include Bill Barr. Is the law firm that represent Bill Barr not defending Perkins Coie because they think that he'll never write an executive order against the law firm defending Bill Barr? You couldn't get between Bill Barr and a camera when he wanted to tell any network how guilty Donald Trump was in the Mar-a-Lago case. Mark Esper is on the enemies list. Is the law firm representing Mark Esper going to defend Perkins Coie today? Because he could be next. John Bolton has been embroiled in litigation against Bill Barr's Justice Department for the better part of 6 years. I don't know who his lawyers are, but I looked before I came on the air. I looked in the break for a statement from his lawyers. I didn't see one. Liz Cheney's law firm, I mean, I'm sure Trump is targeting her. Don McGahn's lawyer was Bill Burke, who I think works for the Trump org now. I mean, the idea that anyone is safe is what Mike Pompeo was recently tossed off the island in the game of Survivor that is Trumpism. I don't know who his lawyers are, but the point is, you said they're keeping quiet because they think they're safe. No one is ever safe for long.
No, they're not. No, they're not. And that's the point. In the string of law firms that are associated with the individuals that you just identified should be the first ones out of the gate. What is the point of the oath that we swore as lawyers, right? We're here to defend those who otherwise would be persecuted by the very people like Donald Trump. That's what we're called to do. And so whether you're in a corporate setting or a litigation setting, no matter what you do in the law, we're all part of the same fraternity and sorority of lawyers who have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law and to protect those who have a matter to bring before the courts of this country. And we don't decide whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing for us financially, right? And so I'm hoping they stand up. I'm hoping this is just a momentary pause as they're sitting there writing the narrative that they're going to put out there publicly, because otherwise their silence is indicting them. And it is a dark day for the legal community if we allow this one man, I don't care if he is the president of the United States, because everything I was taught as a young lawyer was no one is above the law. Everything I was taught as a sworn officer of the court was nobody's above the law. What I was told when I swore my oath of office as an elected official, that no one is above the law. If we believe that's true, then prove it.
Christy, is it legal to single out a private company with retribution?
So I don't think this executive order is going to hold up. There are so many aspects of it that seem blatantly illegal. This idea that he could strip access to government buildings from these lawyers, so you can't walk into a courthouse or into an agency. That means you effectively can't do your job for your clients if you can't go to meetings or go to court proceedings or any of the number of things that happen in government buildings. That cannot possibly be legal. Things like stripping them of their security clearances, that he has a lot of discretion over. But again, if the reason that you are doing it is so that they cannot defend anybody who is in opposition to you, that again seems to interfere with your client's potential rights to effective counsel, also to due process rights. There is a procedure that they're supposed to go through, each of these agencies, to deny security clearance. Doesn't seem like he did that. He just did it with the stroke of a pen. Limiting interactions with employees of the firm, I don't even know how that's possible. How do you say, if you're on the other side, if you are the government, you're on the other side of a case with a Perkins Coie law firm, how do you limit the interaction with them? You have to deal with them to deal with your case. Like, it's practically moronic and stupid, but I think it will be struck down. But I think the larger point is this chilling effect, right? Because you are going to have people who say, well, if the government is not hiring people from this firm, I'm not going to go to that firm. I don't want to work at that firm. So you're going to affect potential applicants to the firm. You're going to affect potential clients to the firm who say, I'm not sure I want to bring my business to this firm if they're going to be all, dealing with this kind of opposition from DOJ. I'll just pick another law firm that isn't. So I think that is the intended impact, to make it hurt for the firm.
I guess the point is, in the year 9, though, Michael, the firms that are staying quiet today, I promise them, if it's not one of the people on this list who are on the public enemies list, it will be somebody else who is attached to one of your cases at one of your firms. They will come for everybody that stays quiet. The only thing they respond to is toughness.
They do. And that's why I would be less reticent and to remain quiet in this moment. And I think there is strength, and it's something that folks in Trump world count on. We just throw all of this up at the wall and everyone sees the pattern of it, and they get afraid and they back away and they don't want to get splattered. We need to get splattered. We need to engage in this. You just can't sit by and just go, well, I don't want to be the firm that I lose my clients, or I don't. What does that say about you? Why would I want to come to you if you don't have the what to actually defend yourself?